I hope you're ready for another episode of KnightChat, First on Air, your go-to podcast for everything FIRST robotics related and more. I'm your host Chandra, and today's topic is scouting. Here in New England First, we are 1 week into the competition, and it's about time to discuss one of the most critical parts of a FIRST competition, scouting. For those who don't know, scouting is the process of collecting data and insights on other teams at competition to help plan game strategy and plan for alliance selection. Now, we love robots here at Team 195, but when it comes to alliance selection, teams must rely on either their scouting data or a really good memory to know who to partner up with. Here with me today, as the guests of this episode, are strategy sub-team mentors Dave Drechsler and Mark Maciejewski. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Well, I'm Mark Maciejewski. I've been part of the team for, I think, 10 years now. My son joined the team when he was a freshman in 2017. In that year, I started helping out with scouting from a guy named Steve Pistillo, who was the mentor of the strategy team at that point. And little did I know at that moment, but Steve, it was his last year, so I began being the mentor in 2018 of the strategy, and decided I couldn't do that alone, so I dragged that Dave along with me.
And I'm Dave Drechsler. I've been with the team for 11 years. I've had 3 kids go through the program, all in different aspects of the team. My wife is also a mentor on the team. And I started as a mentor along with Mark with strategy, jumped on board with him, and we've been going through it ever since then.
All right, I'm excited to dive deep into this. So how about we start off with explaining the process that Team 195 follows for scouting during competitions?
So I guess I'll start. During competitions, we have the strategy system has multiple components to it. So when we first get to a competition, we do pit scouting, as many teams do. So we generally pick maybe 4 or 5 or 6 of our better scouting students, who then pair themselves with students who are very mechanically inclined, and they go around and they pit scout and take pictures of the robot, and all that data is fed into our system. So that's where we start.
So then we move on to our level 1 scouting, which is scouting of matches during the event. This is where we have 6 students looking at one of the 6 robots on the field, taking quantitative data on tablets on a system we developed, and they pull the data in and we bring it into our analysis system.
Then the other types of scouting we do are level 2 scouting, and we generally have roughly about 6 students, and we take all the robots in a competition, we break them into groups, say 6 groups, and then each of those students will be responsible for writing detailed notes and reports on their batch of robots. And we call that level 2 scouting, and that is more qualitative. They're supposed to analyze the quantitative data that the level 1 system is collecting and weave that into their synopsis of the robot. But then when we go to discuss the robots for ranking, for alliance selection, we have a student who should be responsible and have detailed information about each robot. And then as Dave pointed out, all the data that's being fed into the system is constantly, every couple minutes, goes through a series of analysis scripts that we've written, and it processes the data and then rewrites new data into our database that's in a nice format for us to analyze very quickly and easily.
Seems like a really complicated process, I see. But I understand that we used to be a team that used paper for scouting, similar to other teams now. Do you want to explain how we developed our system from paper to electronic?
Well, yeah, like most teams, they started out scouting on paper and moved into an electronic mode. Some still do paper. As Mark mentioned earlier, we took the system over from Steve Pistillo. He was the one that orchestrated the move from a paper scouting into electronic scouting. he developed the database that we still use for the most part today. We've made some enhancements to it, but the data model for the most part has remained the same since he developed it. We do have to modify it each year for the new game, new elements that we're going to be capturing, but the structure of like events or matches, which is primarily the same every year, is still there.
Yeah, and you mentioned like we have to change the scouting system for the game each year, and especially this year with so many game pieces on the field. Can you just tell us some challenges with developing the system to the game?
So the way our system is built, the database for the most part, the data schema, which basically all the tables and columns where the data is stored, the majority of it is consistent year over year. But of course, there are a few tables that are going to be very game specific. So it's not a Herculean effort to retool some of those tables once we decide, what data we want to collect. On the front end, that's more what Dave goes over, but the front end clearly is going to be different every year. But the nice thing is once you've developed, say, widgets for buttons and pull-down menus, they could just be sort of reused and then just change, obviously, the text that's going to be displayed, the location where it's going to appear.
Yeah, the trick is we want to capture as much data as we can, but still have accurate data. So if we're asking for too much from the scouter, then we're going to have bad data, and we don't want bad data. So we have to find that fine line between what we can capture and what's going to be accurate enough. And this year was a little tricky. We only have one field element that we're capturing for shooting, but how do we capture how much is shooting at a particular time? These robots are shooting up to 10 pieces per second. So that was a bit of a challenge this year.
Yeah, and our system this year has buttons. So if a robot's shooting slow, you could be pressing one button. If the robot's shooting faster, you could be pressing another button. And so we are trying to get quantitative data. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but we're going to try to do it as accurately as we can.
Yeah, that's understandable for this year's game. I'm looking at the practice field behind you, and it's a mess back there.
Yeah. And it's I think it's even more complicated because when the teams aren't shooting into their own hub, they're going to be shooting balls into their own zone. So it's going to be very difficult for the scouters to be tracking this information. Balls are just going to be flying everywhere.
Yeah. Speaking of our scouters, do you guys want to explain how we prepare our scouters for competitions?
Yeah. So after we develop our system, our strategy team lays together documentation and holds training classes for all the students. Most of our students that aren't on the strategy team will be doing the level 1 scouting. Members of the strategy team typically do our level 2 scouting, which is more involved and a little more time consuming. So we hold the training, and this year, especially because the game is difficult, we're going to also be having practice sessions for students to get better at it. We really want to get as much accurate data as we possibly can.
So we've gone through and they'll be practicing on 3 matches. We've gone through in slow motion and have captured very accurate data for those 3 matches. So then we can see when the scouters go through, we'll be able to compare the results that they're getting to the ground truth results from the actual matches. And if they're struggling, then we're going to work with them and try to train them to improve.
Yeah, I have to go through that training today, by the way, audience. So let's dive into the data. So I understand that we actually share our data with other teams. We have scouting cards available at our pit for other teams to access our scouting data. So do you want to explain why we do this practice and how it actually helps teams?
Yeah. We're fortunate to have a large team, a lot of resources, people that we could assign to watch all the robots on the field, 6 people per match. Some teams aren't as large as us. If they were, they could capture this quantitative data as well. So we figured if we're capturing it, we could share that for other teams to use, and they can put it through their own analysis process, put it in a spreadsheet, and run reports against it. And then they can just worry about the qualitative scouting.
Yeah. So I had mentioned earlier, every few minutes we run a series of scripts, and one of the scripts is to take our level 1 data, our quantitative data, and to upload that to the Team 195 website. So it is there for anybody to download. A few teams last year, actually, the data has been downloaded and used by many teams. We've had many teams come and thank us because they don't have scouting systems because they're small, and they've relied on our data in cases when they've been fortunate enough to be in an alliance picking position. But we've noticed last year a few teams actually started providing their own websites with our data, with graphical representations of that data. So we decided we should be doing that ourselves. So one of the improvements this year is you're not just going to be able to get a JSON file or a CSV file of the data, raw data itself, but we'll also be providing interactive graphics of that data.
Yeah, and if you're a team out there looking for scouting data and you need a little help, Team 195 has got you. If you come and check out our website, team195.com, we have it available on our website. We also, in our pit, if you see us at competitions, we have scouting cards with QR codes that you can scan that leads to our scouting data. Now, let's actually see what the scouting data is for, alliance selection time. So when you're looking at the data, what do you guys look for? Like, what stands out the most when you're selecting teams? Because usually when we're at competitions, we're in a position where we're selecting teams. So how about you explain that?
Yeah, we obviously use our data for alliance selection. First robot selection usually is pretty straightforward, depending on what position you're in. If you're in the 1 or 2 position, you pretty much know who you're going to pick. If you're in a 3 or 4, after that are still going to be a higher alliance captain, and you're selected by the first alliance, and perhaps maybe they moved up the ranking system because of their schedule, or they're really good at the climb and getting extra ranking points that you're not getting. You have to decide, will we go with this alliance, or do we say no and pick another team based on the data? And if you're picking later in the alliance selection, you need to have enough good robots left to pick if you're going to say no. So if you're in the 4th spot and you say no to the 1 alliance, you need like 6 robots, 5 or 6 robots that you think are as good or better than that first alliance team to say no.
Yeah, one of the things I like about the system that Dave and the kids have built is we basically have what we call a pick list. So we'll have a list of the robots, and we've sort of ordered them. And then as teams are picked, what's very nice is we put them in, we type the team numbers in as they're picked, and then they essentially come off our board.
Oh, okay.
And all the data tables, all their data for those robots get stripped away. So as the alliance selection moves forward, you're looking at a smaller and smaller subset of the data of just the remaining teams. And then, of course, everything is still rank ordered based on our rank list. So that makes, generally comes down to it when it's time for us to pick. We have 1, 2, 3 robots. I mean, we're not trying to compare the entire list of robots. We're really trying to make a decision. I'll also point out, I think it's very game specific, and it is event specific. If you're picking early at a district event with not a lot of teams in it, generally speaking, you might be thinking the 3rd bot, there may not be enough bots left with high offensive capabilities, so you might be thinking defense. So I think it's the strategy, what you want to do. The first pick is always, Dave says, is always easy. You're picking the highest power robot you can get.
Yeah, of course.
The second pick one is more, you got to pick that robot based on who's going to be left that's going to mesh with your team the best. And that may mean you need as much offensive power as you can. It may mean, we got the offense covered with the first 2 robots, and we just need somebody who's going to play brutal defense. We need somebody this year might be somebody who's really effective at pushing balls into our zone. From that point of view, I think the strategy is very specific to the game and to the event.
Yeah, and as Mark said, as the teams fall off the list, we're just looking at a subset of what's left over. We can pick different criteria from our system. Is it how much they're shooting, how much they're shuttling, what they do in auto, all the little intricacies that make one team a little better than another team, just to find the max points you can get out of that third bot.
All right. Was there ever a time that your scouting data did not work the way that you thought it would? And tell us more about that.
So one thing I think that's very difficult in scouting often is I mentioned a bit ago, we may be looking for a defensive bot, but one of the things where our scouting data often lets us down is in the ability to pick a defensive bot. And I think the reason is one, it's very difficult to get any sort of quantitative data on defense. So it's just all qualitative information. And some robots in an event want to highlight themselves as defensive bots. So they go out because they know that's their best chance of getting picked. So they'll go out and play lots and lots of defense. You might have another bot that's hoping to be picked as an offensive bot. So maybe they're not playing any defense. That doesn't mean that offensive bot's not a better defensive bot. So it's not even who's been playing the best defense or the most defense in the event. You really have to look at the quality of the drivers, the robustness of the robot, the capabilities of the robot, and make an evaluation for defense based on that. But I can tell you, we've won events recently because we've been able to pick defensive bots. Two cases, I think, without a shadow of the doubt, was at the district champs a couple years ago. We ended up picking 5112, the Gondoliers, who played brutalizing defense, and we ended up winning the event with them. And there's no way we don't win without them. That they were so good at shutting down the offenses of the other team. And then even more extraordinary is to go back to, is it 2018, 2019, when we picked 1073 in Detroit at the World Champs. And we went up against an alliance of 1114 and 2056, which were probably two of the top 5 robots in the world that year.
Wow.
Extraordinary alliance. And we ended up picking 1073 that had a robot entirely built to play defense. They had 6 or 8 pneumatic wheels, and they would deflate them, so they just had amazing grip, and they had a 2-speed transmission, and they were able to knock it down. So they had amazing pushing power, and they absolutely annihilated 1114. They would if 1114 got by them, they would get them and they would push them across the field. So their defensive bot, that year you can only have one robot playing defense. Their defensive bot would have to stop playing defense because we pushed them into our zone. So they effectively were the defensive bot there. And in one of the matches, they held them off so long that they never even had an opportunity to climb. And another match, they got to climb, but they got there so late they ended up falling. So those are two in particular. Picking the right defensive bot won those events, and there's no way we win those matches or those events without those great defensive bots.
Those are two definite highlights of my time here on the team, and
Yes.
I think a lot of people that were here.
Yeah, I've heard of the Gondoliers, and it's like a fabled story in the shop. Like, I don't think I was on the team when that happened, but when I hear of it, it's like we hold them in such high standards after that match.
We were easily the third or fourth alliance in that event, and I know the 2 or the 1 were both looking at them as well. And we were able to snatch them on the way back before they got them. And I think there was some delay in the selecting of the number 1 or the number 2 alliance pick because that's who they were going to go with.
Yeah, and in Detroit in 2019, I gotta give a massive shout out to 236 as well. They were our 4th robot, and
230.
I'm sorry. Yeah, 230. Yeah, I'm sorry. 230 was our 4th bot, and 1073 in our second match broke during the match. We ended up losing that match because they broke, and a lot of teams would have been like, "This is great. This is our opportunity as the 4th bot to get in there and play." But their technicians and their students and their mentors basically descended on 1073 and worked to the moments before that match was going to be played, and we went out and ended up winning it. And so that was incredibly gracious of them to get that row back on the field, even though it meant them not playing.
Yeah. So I know we just talked about how picking a defense spot is definitely one of the hardest parts about alliance selection. Are there any other watch-outs or cautions that you want to share for other teams that are not really familiar with the scouting process?
Definitely don't pick the next team on the list. Don't pick the next highest scoring team necessarily, or the next highest ranked team. Look at your data. Look at it all. Take everything into the mix. What they're doing for climb, what they're doing for auto, and then their tele-app work as well. As we talked about defense too, sometimes it's how many points that you impact the score, not necessarily by how much you can score, but how much you can slow the other team from scoring.
All right, it is time for a cyber side chat. Now, we are a couple episodes in, so I don't know if you've heard of our cyber side chat segment yet, but basically it is a random question not related to the topic at all. And here's our question. So, scouting can be a team's secret sauce, the condiment that determines the competition. If Team 195's scouting strategy was a type of sauce, what would it be and why? Take your time. Take your time to think about it. For our audience, Mark and Dave are just sitting here very, very confused, really thinking about this question.
It's probably going to be a candy or something else.
Oh, we already did
sauce.
that. Episode 2, Chris Poulos.
So we're looking for a sauce
Sauce, any type of sauce, really.
any type of sauce that
our strategy would be.
I don't know. I was thinking like the Big Mac sauce or whatever. Is that special sauce? What is that called?
Yeah, special sauce.
Yeah.
Probably is.
It's almost like a Thousand Island dressing or something. It's a combination of everything, and it's everything being pulled in together. All this different data that we pull in together. So it's just like that secret sauce, pulled together to make something really, really good and robust.
That's a really good response.
That's my man right there. That's why I dragged him along in 2018.
Just for that question. I love that response, and I was not expecting it.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about scouting in general. Now it's time to talk about this season specifically, because this upcoming weekend, we have Western New England, our first qualifier for this FRC season. So I understand that you guys were scouting week 0 for this season. Do you want to tell us what trends you saw regarding gameplay or strategy?
So the main strategy I'm seeing offensively is not shocking. It's when you're not shooting into your own hub, you're simply trying to collect as many balls as fast as you can and push them into your zone. And then obviously I think it's critical that your hopper is full and you make it your way to your zone ahead of the time to shoot. I'm thinking about 2 seconds. And essentially you start shooting immediate, like maybe even before your timing comes in, because it's going to take a certain amount of time for the balls to fly through the air. So the moment that the first click of the first second of your zone hits, you want balls going through your hopper. And you need a lot of balls nearby so you can continue streaming them in for the entire duration of your zone. So I think that's one of the things that's important. I think most alliances are going to have one robot that shoots extremely well, and so your other robots are going to be able to shoot as much as they can, but your strategies, I think, you have to decide, are they more effective of kind of going it alone, picking up their own balls and shooting, or are they going to be more effective of feeding that top shooting bot balls so they don't really need to move and they can keep pouring them in?
Yeah, I think another key is winning auto. Winning auto gets you to not have to be the first interval of shooting. So after you've shot auto and that 10-second where both hubs are active, you can start collecting as opposed to having to shoot. You might have shot everything in auto, and you don't want to have to try to collect and shoot in that first interval. So winning auto is key. We ran practice matches, human player matches.
At kickoff,
At
yes.
kickoff, yeah. And I think that the data showed that the team that won auto won most of the matches that we had, almost all of the matches.
Yes.
And we know some kids did have strategies to lose auto on purpose and collect instead so they can be available for the first interval, but that really didn't work out for them.
Yeah. The other strategies I'm seeing in the week 0 is a complete abandonment of the climb. I've just not seen a lot of teams climbing. Obviously, to be able to get the 50 points to get the climb ranking point would be huge if you can do it, but you end up having to give up a lot of time to be able to get to that level 3 climb, which I think a lot of teams have just prioritized not doing it. And in a playoff situation, a level 3 climb for a very good shooting robot doesn't particularly make a lot of sense, because in the time it's going to take me to climb, I may be able to get more than 30 balls, and so it may be a point loser to actually have a level 3 climb in the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of kickoff, I just wanted to mention, I think this is a really good practice for teams. At our kickoff event, we have a practice field here, but obviously we didn't have it fully developed at kickoff because the game just got announced. Our parents and mentors come together and help build a cardboard replica of the field, and then our students at kickoff split up into teams and alliances and sit on chairs and roll around on the field. This year we had buckets to simulate hoppers, and we simulated the game. So we had full timers going. We, like Dave mentioned, we had someone tracking auto, so whoever wins auto, their hub turns on first. We would have me. I was announcing which hub was active because we didn't have lights, obviously. So I think this is a really good practice for teams to actually simulate game strategy, because after that kickoff activity, we all came together the next day and we were like, well, what worked during matches, what didn't work? And like Dave said, people were spending a lot of time collecting during auto, or at the beginning, losing auto and then just collecting, but it's proving to not be very successful. So, next question. Western New England this weekend. We're very excited, obviously. What do you guys expect to see at the competition? What do you guys hope to see? There's going to be a lot of good teams there. We're going to be there, obviously. So what do we want to see going on strategy-wise? Because Western New England's definitely going to be a lot different than week 0.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be looking out for who's shooting, how well they're shooting. This is a game that 3 above average teams can beat 2 really good teams potentially. So look for those lower alliances, like 7 or 8, to have pretty stacked teams. I think that the quality of robots going to Western New England is really good. So you can see a higher ranked team end up in finals.
Yeah, and I think it's in any district event where you don't have a lot of teams, there will be some teams that just don't have it. The robot is kind of not at a level they want it to be. So, that one alliance might have a difficult time with a third robot that may not be as strong. But as Dave points out, if you're in that 6, 7, 8 alliance spot, you could be. I could definitely see that being a very good alliance this year, which is also could play a role into strategies of whether you accept or decline somebody early on. But of course, we need to be at the competition to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, of course. So I want to bring this up because I said this, Dave mentioned this earlier, and I want to just explain it a little further. When we say we were scouting the week 0 match, we weren't actually there. We actually had the match pulled up on our TV here in the shop, and our students and our mentors were actually sitting down and watching the match and scouting it as if they were there in the stands, which I think is a practice that a lot of teams should be doing, especially if you're planning on going to the district, the world's level. If you're really counting on getting there, scouting other teams at other matches that you're not even going to be at is very key.
Yeah, so our system is designed too. It has a really cool benefit. The way we run the system is in the stands, we run our own server in our own network that runs our web services and our database services. So that way we're not reliant upon an internet connection to the outside world. Obviously, we like having internet connection to the outside world, and we use a cellular router to abide by all the rules of not having any Wi-Fi. But we also have a server that it's in the past, it's been, basically available to the world. And we synchronize those databases during the event every couple of minutes. So the thing that's very nice about it is you could be in the stands and looking at the data even without an internet connection. But yet if you're in the pits on your phone, you always have access to the data. And this became important in the COVID times when there was very limited numbers of students who were allowed at competitions, because we actually scouted those events for real here at the shop. And at the event, we had all the drive team had all the data basically immediately for processing and analyzing, coming up with match strategies and alliance selection.
Yeah. My last question for today's episode, is there any words of advice you would give out to teams regarding scouting, strategy, anything else that you would like to suggest?
I think we said it along the line or along the way. Don't try to do too much. Try to get accurate data before you're getting too much data, and run it through analysis. I think we have a table that we run with all our analysis types, and we use this table. It's got every single analysis type that we're doing for every single team, and in our alliance selection, we show all the teams for a specific analysis type. So that's a good view of it. But then on our team page, we show all the analysis types for a specific team, all generated from the same table. And I know Mark uses it as well for match scouting. We have something called a match report. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so I agree with Dave. I mean, smaller amounts of data that are reliable are better than huge amounts of data that are unreliable. So you need to pick and choose what your scouters can collect accurately. If you have the resources, I think it's very critical. A piece of advice, I see a lot of teams will scout for alliance selection, but they don't come in to match strategies with data. So they're not using the data for the matches themselves. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of teams make, thinking that scouting is for, and that's partly why we've trying to rebrand scouting into strategy, because the whole point is what we're supposed to make strategic decisions. And that includes like how to play matches. And so for every match, we strategize, how do we maximize our ranking points? And that may mean purposely forgoing after one of the in-game ranking points to ensure the win. Or it could be, we have no chance of winning, so we're not even going to try to win, but we're going to try to get all the in-game ranking points. So it really depends, but we try to make those decisions.
Thank you guys so much for joining me on today's episode. I really appreciate it, but like all good things, this episode must come to an end. However, if you'd like to see how effective our scouting data actually is, you can go check us out on our socials for competition updates. Find us at FRC Team 195 on Instagram, FRC Team 195 The Cyberknights on Facebook, and our website team195.com, where our scouting data is readily available. If you also have any questions about the podcast, you can email us at our email, business@team195.com. I'm Chandra, your host, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Night Chat, first on air, and see you next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.